We are sponsored by Soho Bistro and Lounge.
All right. Hi, everyone. Happy Sunday, and welcome back to episode 4 of The Empowered Path. And as always, all of my guests are so special to me. And on this journey, April and I, um, there's so much magic, but we met about 10 years ago through the 12-step program. And through that, we connected, we were in the same circles, and then we kind of just like have lived life very parallel, doing the same exact things, but always having these like meeting points. April is the owner of Black Mill Photography. If you didn't know, she is an absolutely incredibly talented photographer. And she's done like all my newborn, like all my pregnancy, some, children photo shoots with me, and all my business branding. And so we've just lived this just like synchronicities, and just I'm so excited to have her on here and hear her story. Everybody has a story of trauma and betrayal and abuse, and it's just like the purpose of this podcast is to show that everyone has the same level of pain, because the pain is the same. The wound feels the same. And the more that we get out here and the more that we identify that we're all just on here trying to fucking figure it out and to just share those stories. So we never know where we're going to go or what we're going to talk about, because there's so much to talk about. So we're just going to let the universe guide this conversation, and I'll let April just maybe say anything that she wants to say, and then we'll see where it goes.
Well, thank you. And first, thank you so much for asking me to do this. It's always such an honor, and it always kind of feels weird too, because it's like, what do you mean, my story? Like, how is that going to be impactful, you know? And I think that's true for a lot of people, that they don't realize like how important their life story is to help other people along the path. And just the fact that everything that I have gone through now has a purpose in my life is like so unbelievably humbling and awe-inspiring to me. And the fact that you're doing this and, sharing these stories with people and getting it out there is like unbelievable and so important, Amy. So I just wanted to say thank you for asking me to be on here. And I am so very honored.
Also, and I just want to say something about that too, is that for me, and I know you feel the same, is that the most painful parts of my life, like the most painful parts that I never thought that I would be able to have forgiveness for and to let go, have been the greatest gifts of my life. Like the absolute greatest gifts. Like I wouldn't change it for the world to be where I am sitting in this chair right now.
Absolutely. And I think that the way that I kind of like to think of pain or struggle or pressure, that we're put under is creation. Because if you think about how things are created, like how babies are born, how trees are, bursting through seeds, everything that is created has to go through a period of, pressure and pain and discomfort and struggle to be able to burst through and come into existence. So I really, like, I didn't understand for a really long time the purpose of it all. You know what I mean? I was like, did I do something really horrible in a million past lives? And like, this is what life is going to be now. And, there was a lot of things that I was like going through, even in sobriety, even in when I got better, you know what I mean? Like that was actually when it was the most painful, because I was so aware of what was happening.
And couldn't numb it or escape it.
Exactly. Like I had to face it. And I tried every single way other than, being completely numb from drugs and alcohol to avoid it. And then I kind of realized that that's just not how it works. And if I do the thing that I don't want to do, which is face it head on, I'm actually going to be able to like alchemize it and transform it into something really, really powerful and really healing for me and the people around me. Because like when we go through these processes of big struggle and challenge and we get through it, like we show that to our communities, we show that to our families, we show that to our children. You're a mother, I'm a mother. You know, we have a big responsibility to be able to kind of like let these kids know how to get through these things in life, because life is going to happen. It just does. And I think that we don't realize how much power we actually have in the ability to focus that energy into something positive and impactful for us, as opposed to kind of like drowning in it. And I stayed in that victim mentality for years and years and years, and I was so unconscious of it. I didn't even know that that's what it was. I thought that that's just how, you know, life is. And then when I realized that, like, I had a choice. I had a choice how I wanted to perceive what was happening to me. I had a choice on how I wanted to act through those challenges, and I had a choice of what I wanted to do next. You know, becoming fully responsible for my life used to scare the shit out of me. And then when I realized, like, oh, wait, like I'm fully responsible, that means that I can make this into anything I want it to be. And obviously I'm a human and I'm always growing and I'm always changing and I'm always learning. And, you know, I still get held up with that sometimes when something's really challenging. I might fall back into that pattern of like, oh, why is this happening to me? Like, why can't I have this? Why can't this happen? Or whatever. But I, in a much more graceful and quick manner, I'm able to kind of switch back and be like, okay, what can I learn from this? Or how can I assert myself in a way that really can be helpful and positive and allow this thing to create me in whatever way it's going to be. So yeah, I'm not mad at it. It's actually kind of cool when you get to see it that way and things start to make sense in such a different way.
Yeah, it's what you said about perception, right? When we start to take radical responsibility for how we act, how we show up, stop blaming, not like, oh, you made me mad by doing that, or like it's like, no, like I allowed myself to get mad and express it in that way, and that I have some sort of trauma, right? When we allow things to trigger us, and fuck, I have so many triggering things happening in life all the time. And it's also the justifiable ones, right? Because there's like these situations that are like people be like, yeah, it's so messed up. Like, well, I can't believe that that's happening. But it's like both can be true, but it's how I choose to perceive it.
Exactly.
Through my filter.
Exactly. And what I've discovered is like the way that you view the outside world is what's going on inside too. So like when I really started to realize like what the mirror actually meant, that really taught me so much about like my internal condition and what I needed to take a look at or what I needed to work on more. And like I said, it's a process. It's something that we just continuously like move towards. I always thought that there was going to be an end point, that like once I get this, or once I know this, or once I feel this, whatever it was, I always thought that like I would get to this place of like just everything being perfect or calm or content or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like I just kind of always thought that like that was the goal. And then when I realized like, and this is obviously my perception and my opinions and whatever, but I realized that that's not how it works. And it's a continuous thing that just doesn't end. I had to go through the grief of that, right? First, that realization and try that on, because like when you realize that there actually is no goal, there is no end point, it's like you're just here to experience this. And
Little landmark, like nothing means nothing.
exactly.
It's going nowhere.
Yeah, when
it
I
has
did
no
that,
meaning.
I was so triggered. Like when they said that to me, because meaning has meant everything to my life. You know what I mean? Like everything had a meaning. Like if a car cut in front of me in a certain way, or it had a license plate or whatever, it all had a meaning for me. So when Landmark said like there is no such thing as meaning, nothing means nothing or whatever, you know, I was like, that can't be true. That cannot be true. It literally took me like probably like 8 years to like comprehend that, you know what I mean? And to like try it on and then be okay with it after I went through like the grief process of being like, holy shit, like grieving is something that we can go through with anything. It doesn't have to be like an outside thing that happens to us. It can be letting go of a belief. It can be, letting go of a fantasy or of just some way that we thought something was going to be like, and I didn't understand that. But once I kind of like let myself go through that process of being like, holy shit, like this is never going to end. Like this is always going to be like this. And there, it doesn't have to always be like this, like in the bad sense or the challenging sense or whatever, but the process will continue to go. I will continue to grow. I will continue to age. I will continue to learn. Like life will continue to happen after I'm gone. That's just like the way of the world. And, I've had some really powerful experiences throughout this process of personal development and self-discovery that has really shown me that in such a way that helped me understand it in like it's not all about you, April. Like you are one blip in the whole, cosmos of everything that's going on. And that took so much pressure off of me to realize that I didn't have to be something or I didn't have to do anything. Like I just had to allow and flow and enjoy and experience and, do the things that really bring me passion and bliss. And like, I don't know about you, but I want to enjoy my life. Like I want to be happy. I want to experience all the things, the highs, the lows. Like I'm a person who is pretty passionate. Would you say that?
I would say that.
You know what I mean? I fall in love all the way. When I get angry, I let it like rise in me. When I have my determination and my focus on a project, like I give every single piece of me with that. And I want to be able to do that fully and not feel like I have to mute myself or suppress any of that. So it's like, I think that that's probably what we're here to do, right? It's just experience it.
To live full out. And I think that that's the biggest, you talked about it, like this arrival point, right? Where like life gets calm and everything is just good. And that's that spiritual bypassing bullshit. Like that everything's just supposed to be like love and light. It's like,
Yeah.
no, it's dark. The world is dark. And it's only to the level of the dark that you're willing to go that you get to experience the light. And that's always going to be the case. There's never going to be this arrival moment for the earth where like all of a sudden, like it's never been that way. It's always been this way. I was saying to somebody the other day, there's always been the end of the world coming, right? There's always been this like big catastrophic, like, oh, the 2000s, Y2K. And then remember like the 2012, the Mayan calendar ended, the world was going to end. Like it's always this like great destination of this big ending that's going to happen to keep everybody in this like fear space of like, it's like, do you think the dinosaurs knew that like the world was going to freeze over? No, the dinosaurs just lived their life until all of a sudden like it just wasn't there anymore, right? And like if we can just come back to home, right? Home being our internal condition, to make that the safest space for us to feel all the levels of all of it, right? So not trying to just like mask it in this like everything's amazing and it's gonna be amazing. Woo! So excited to live life. No, that is not, and then we have like the social media world where everyone's like, oh, your life is so amazing and so beautiful. Yes, it really is. But also it's fucking dark and painful and sad. And I cry a lot and I scream a lot and I question reality all the time. But also I see and witness the most magic every day. Every day there is not a day in my life where I don't witness magic in this world. And I know you live the same.
Yes. Yes. I actually like, it's something I feel like that I was always kind of seeking, even as a child. Like, as a child, I was kind of strange. You know what I mean? In the ordinary sense. I was raised in like the Catholic religion, and I went to Catholic schools, and I was super, super interested in God in all ways, right? So, but the box that God was put in that church like didn't make sense to me. So I used to read, like I still have the books. It's like the world's religions and things like that. And I would like read all about it because I wanted to know everybody's perception of God, because I was so attracted to the afterlife and what are we doing here? And even like really young, like when I go back and I think about it, I used to read these stories, like mythology. I loved mythology and things like that. And I would ask questions in class about, you know, oh, that story sounds like the story of Jesus, sounds really similar to this story. And I would get like in trouble for asking these things. But yeah, that whole like journey of me really trying to like look and seek for something bigger has absolutely brought me to where I am today. And it's honestly like so fun for me. Like it really is so fun to be able to kind of see how far I can go, to see all the different things that I can discover through other people, through practices, through medicine work, through all the things that I do to kind of bring me closer to, you know, this part of me that feels like this isn't home, like that this is a, you know, stop off point, that there's something so much bigger, that we are all bigger than these bodies that we're in, you know, and it's just been such a cool like experience. And when you were talking about like, the dinosaurs, right? And how they had no idea. And I think that what's unique about human beings versus like animals, you know, they live in the present moment all the time. Like they're not worried about bills or kids or the future or aging or wrinkles or whatever. They're not worried about any of that stuff. Like they're just totally focused on their survival and, you know, how they're going to continue on with the species. Like basically,
We should be more like animals.
well, I think that would probably be, you know, maybe a little more enjoyable. And, you know, we also have this really amazing ability to contemplate life in a way that, I mean, who knows? I have no idea what the consciousness of a dinosaur is. Like they might
Right.
know all of it. Like who knows? And that might be why they're, you know, just chilling. But it's really interesting. I just love contemplating all that stuff. Philosophy is like one of my favorite things to discuss, and just like the meaning of life, and just I love everybody's perspective on it too. It's like so cool.
Yeah.
Totally is my soul
And
food.
it's all unique.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some people have different ways, but it's all processed through every single unique experience that and I say it even like you see it with children, right? Like you have 3 children, they grow up in the same situation. Everyone is uniquely different and have their own perception of how they felt, how they saw you, like, and just like every single person, like, there is no two perceptions of me as a human being. Like every single human being I come across has a different perception of me in their mind that is created through their own filter of how they face life. And when you think about that, you're like, oh, wow. Okay. So like nobody even has the perception that I have of myself. Right. Even like the closest, like even my partner, like, you know, it's just
Yeah.
like, it's wild when you're like, oh shit, like I actually have. Like there's nothing you can do about that.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing you can do.
I always say there's 8 billion planets on this planet, because every single human being has a different perspective of what this planet is, what life means, what the experience is. And I think that is actually really incredible, because look at all the information that you can get,
Yeah.
you know, by interacting with the human beings around you. Like being really curious and asking questions about how they understand things and how they perceive things is like, you can learn so much from that. And I used to have this deep belief that I kind of knew, right? Like if I like learned something, for instance, and it really like resonated, okay, I'm like, that's the truth. And there was nothing that anyone was going to be able to tell me that was going to tell me that wasn't the truth. You know what I mean? And, that came up a lot in spirituality and politics and like whatever, these big hot button subjects. And I started to realize that I was really doing a disservice to myself by being in that mindset and by kind of thinking that like I couldn't be taught anything because I knew everything, It wasn't until like humility obviously always brings in a level of like, oh shit, maybe I didn't know what I was talking about, And, it is uncomfortable, obviously, to be humbled by something when you learn, but like once you kind of get through that feeling of like embarrassment and shame or whatever humility brings, you can really kind of get to a place where you're like, oh, I might be wrong. Tell me your opinion, because your opinion can change mine. And I've become so much more movable as I age and as I go through this process, that I've learned so much more. I can't even believe the amount of information and experience that I've been able to take in through realizing that I don't know everything. And the more I do learn, the more I realize I know nothing. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's a great segue to this topic, because I actually was having this conversation the other day about 12-step work. And like identifying so hardly with like the disease of addiction and how I was a mental defect and I was born sick. Like I fully believed that about myself for 9 years of my life. Like I had convinced myself that like this alcoholism was a disease of my mind, and I had this whole mental, like everything, because like you said, when they said it, it felt like the truth. It resonated, and I felt it in my heart, and I connected to it, and it was finally an answer to something that I had no true understanding of. So now I thought I had the true understanding of what it is. So it's like I like cringe when I think about, right? Like the big book thumper, like the circuit speaker, like all of like in that identity to that. And then you get curious. Things start to shift. You start to do the work on yourself. You start to actually seek God. You start to actually, work with other people and branch yourself out, and you start learning other things. And the fact of like the plant medicine stuff, like making that decision to, go, Justin and I talked about this last week too, like that identity crisis that you like,
oh my God, it was so
like
intense
who would I be without this identity that I've created for myself?
Who am I going to lose? Like,
yeah.
Like it was
everyone.
It was pretty intense. Like that process for me. We left AA like around the same time. That's so funny when you're talking about like the parallels, because it was always so interesting whenever we would get together for like coffee, or oftentimes it was photo shoots, and we would just like talk about each other. And I'm like, holy shit, like I'm doing that same thing. And I'll never forget like when, the journey work really started for us is kind of when we were like, oh, okay, so now we can walk together through this, because it was like, it kind of felt like the time, and it was really, really cool. But
well, there was so much, and I obviously, like I had Kaylin on the podcast and stuff too. And like we talked about it, the program itself, right? Like the 12 steps, beautiful principles, the people in the program are what make, just like anything else, right? Like you get a bunch of, unhealthy human beings together, like what's going to happen? A lot of unhealthy things are going to happen. A lot of drama, a lot of gossip, a lot of, disconnection of who you were sponsored by. You couldn't be if you were sponsored by one, but you know what I mean? There was all this like weird, control and like, again, spiritual bypassing, spiritual egos, like who has the most sponsees and who has the most time, like this whole just like, there was beautiful parts of it, but through that part is why I feel like we didn't get as close as we are now,
because we were kind of we were in two different sponsor families or whatever. And I think that like that is true. that there is a part of AA that is like that. And there's also a part of AA that's not like that, you know, and it really just kind of depends on the circles that you're like running in. You know, we were in young people's, and, you know, it was basically, in my opinion, like you said, a bunch of people who are coming in with a lot of trauma, a lot of habits that are and patterns that are just like really unhealthy. And we're all basically trying to be therapists for each other. And it's, you know, that is like the only thing that a lot of people are doing. And I know for me, for the first, you know, 5 years or whatever, 4 years, something like that, it was the only thing I was doing, you know? I did do like other like personal development stuff, but I was never seeing like a therapist during that time. I was never, you know, working with anybody like a coach or any, like I was never working with anybody other than the people around me who were literally in the same pool that I was in. Right. And, I'll always say, like, I'm super grateful for AA, and I know you are too. It was exactly what I needed at the time that I had it, and most of my relationships today, my closest friendships, are through AA. Like I met them through AA, and I'm absolutely so completely grateful for that. And I think that there is kind of like a dogma with it, that you have to be a certain way to be accepted, because there is this, like, if I think about when someone would relapse or when someone would, you know, be struggling or have trouble or whatever, but especially a relapse, AA kind of like was like, you know, help everybody and acceptance and, you know, take care of each other and whatever. But as soon as someone drank, like no one talked to him, because it's like, I'm going to catch it. Like, I don't want to, you know, like, and that's kind of how it was, you know? And I know that I felt that way. Like if someone had really gone off the rails, you know, I would try to help in the ways that I could, but like I was terrified of putting myself in a situation where I was going to be enticed or just around someone who was out of control. It really frightened me. And I would kind of like cut myself off from that. And I know that that was a common thing, because there, like a lot of people who would relapse would feel this like feeling of abandonment, you know, from it, because it's like, I was here for, you know, 10 years or whatever. And then I fucked up, and now where is everybody? Where are all my friends that I've built this community with for 10 years? And, you know, I think that AA has a lot of really amazing parts to it. Like, you learn that there is life outside of using drugs and alcohol every day. You learn that people can get better. You learn that there are ways that you can really look inside of yourself and discover where this all came from, right? But I think that it doesn't go as deep as it could. Okay. And like that's what happened for me with AA and why I decided to go a different way. So, you know, life was happening for me during that time. I was going through a divorce. I was having like this whole identity crisis. I was getting to a certain age. You know what I mean? I had 2 young kids, and life was just like super, super heavy. And I was doing everything that I was supposed to do. You know, I had sponsees. I was doing tons of service work. I was, you know, did the steps twice. And I was still feeling this like deep, deep level of depression and like self-hatred even, because I didn't understand why I wasn't better, you know, like I wasn't high and I wasn't numb, and I had growth through those periods for sure. But I was still like reacting the same way to triggers, and I was still in, you know, my relationships were not as good as I wanted them to be. And I didn't feel like I had like a handle on life. I felt like I had just like scratched the surface, you know what I mean? Like that spiritual kindergarten that, you know, we've talked about. And then it got to a point where I was like, okay, like I'm thinking about suicide like regularly. And that was not something that that wasn't a thought that I had all the time, you know what I mean? And then it started to become like a regular thing. And I had lost my niece to suicide like a couple years before. And it was a very scary thing, because I had like 2 kids, and I'm like, the pain was so great that I did not feel that I could manage it anymore. So I went to my PCP, and I was like, you know, totally against any kind of medications for me at that time. Like, you know, if medications work for you, then that's great. But for myself at that time, I did not want to have anything mind altering or anything that I was addicted to, because that's what I attributed it to. Like if
Same.
I had to take, you know, an antidepressant every day, or I had to take any kind of anti-anxiety stuff, I would be addicted again. And I wanted to be free of that. So I went to my doctor and I was like, I need help. And she just immediately put me on an antidepressant. And I was so desperate that I was like, okay, like I will literally try anything right now to make me not feel this way. And within a month, I was like numb, you know, I was not having, I go back and I'm like, I don't like feel sad, but I don't feel happy either. I'm like, it's kind of like this. And she's like, oh, that's called baseline. That's where we want you. And I was like, well, that's not where I want to be. I want to be able to like feel things and life and, you know, joy and even pain. Like I want to be able to feel these things. Like that's important for me to be able to like have those feelings, because that's my guidepost of like what I need to do next. And I couldn't feel anything. So during that time, you know, I had a ton of experience with psychedelics when I was younger. You know, the first time I ever did LSD, I was like 13. I took 3 tabs of blotter acid and I had a full ego death and a crazy experience. Like I had no idea what I was doing. And I never did it with intention. It was always recreational, and it was always, you know, just to see what I could see. But I was super, super attracted to it from that first moment. I feel like that first moment that I had that experience, I kind of like was looking for that again, you know, forever. And I did it through many other ways that obviously weren't the path, but that was the goal for me, to kind of be able to access what I experienced in that that trip. So I was there was a bunch of people coming into my life at that time, like a lot of, you know, people who had experience with psychedelics, and like from the most random places too. It wasn't like I sought anything out. Like they were just like coming to me. I was randomly meeting these people, and then I got invited to this gathering in Boston that was kind of like an AA meeting, but for people talking about psychedelics. And I went to it and I was like, what is going on? You know, and they're talking about like ayahuasca, and they're talking about all these huge journeys of personal self-discovery and the things that they healed, and like deep trauma, like childhood stuff, like memories that they had locked away that they didn't even know were there. And I was so intrigued. I was so like curious. And it really gave me like a lot of hope. Like I started to lean into like, maybe that could work for me. But I had this identity of, you know, my sobriety date is August 28th, 2014. And I have to keep that. Like that if I did this, regardless of what my intention was, regardless of what the purpose was, I was going to be, you know, disappointing myself and a whole bunch of people. So I had to like let go of that. And it took me some time to be able to process what that was going to mean if I decided to, you know, go with the path of the psychedelic journey. And so I decided to start small. I ended up meeting somebody who is a dear friend today, which is so funny, who had experience with microdosing. And I was looking up like different natural ways to heal depression and help with that. And microdosing came up, and I was like, oh, okay. So I ended up, you know, getting it. And it literally sat in my kitchen cabinet for like a month, because I was like, I don't know what it's going to do. Like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Just like, what's going to happen? And then finally one night, it was like not this big ceremonial thing. It was not, it was just like, fuck it, I'm going to do it. And then I did. And then like nothing happened. Nothing bad happened. You know, nothing really happened. It was very subperceptual, actually. I did feel a little bit, you know, maybe altered, but it was nothing of note. And so I started following a protocol, and I was like, okay, like I'm going to really give this a go. And within 1 month, I was able to dose myself off of the antidepressants. And the antidepressants that I was on was like, it's called Effexor. So there was like a lot of like withdrawal symptoms with it. Like you would get like brain zaps if you didn't take it one day, and like just this constant feeling of like anxiety, and it felt like electricity just like zapping through your body. Like if you didn't take it, it was so terrible. And I was like, oh, I'm addicted again, you know. And it was really hard. But within a month, I was able to get off of it, and I just became like so inspired by the experience of what I had gone through, and I was like, this has got to be the way, you know. And I was still fully in AA at this time. And I didn't feel comfortable talking openly about it, obviously, and I don't think it's responsible, to be honest, to talk about psychedelic use in an AA meeting when people are coming in and they're new and, they're just looking for something. And
Right.
if you give them another substance, it's obviously not physically addicting. And a lot of these experiences, especially the larger ones, like I know that I don't want to be doing that every single day of my life, but I know that there are some people that would. And so like there is that level of like needing to be conscious of that. So
Yeah, and just like when I made the decision to leave AA and like start doing plant medicines and like, mine was I got prescribed marijuana, right? So that's kind of where like mine started, and I had like that fear. I had, a brain injury. I had my gallbladder out. Like my stomach was all like there was so many medical reasons, and I didn't want to have to take medical medication every day for these things that I had going on. And I was working with a therapist. Like I worked with a therapist for months on making the decision to do what I'm doing now. And there was this moment, and I'll never forget this moment as I was working on it. And my therapist looked at me, and she was a saint. I miss her. She retired since. But she was like, Amy, don't you think you've earned the right to be your own counsel?
ooh. Wow.
And when she said that to me, like looked me in my soul and like said that, and I like full body, it was like a full body, like, yeah, like 9 years, like a mother. At the time I had 3 foster kids I was taking care of, like running a business, like running a nonprofit, like had started my nonprofit was super, like is crazy success. Like, yeah, I think I have actually earned the right to be my own counsel and to make decisions for myself, even if it went south.
Yeah.
Right? That was a risk I was willing to take because I had been convinced I was powerless. Like,
Yeah, that you couldn't make decisions for yourself because you couldn't trust your own mind and things like that. And I think that at a certain point you can't, like when you're
Right,
completely wrapped up. Like I couldn't in the beginning.
exactly. I was at when I first got sober, like I was powerless. But I was powerless over drugs and alcohol because I was powerless over my life completely because I was full of trauma.
Yeah.
Full of trauma, and I had no idea how to deal with any of my emotions at all. And yeah, I was sick at the time,
for sure.
but I did a lot of healing in 9 years with no substances. 9 years facing every single thing without escaping.
Yep.
That's hard work. And yeah, in that 9 years, I did earn the right. And like, even when I started adding alcohol back in my life, there was times when I drank too much because you know what? It was like I was 21 again and had to build a relationship with alcohol again.
Yeah, and you had to understand, what it was going to be in your life. When I started also, like it was kind of like a research project.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like I definitely had a couple. I remember I had this experience where I was down in New Orleans and I was shooting a wedding, and I went out on Bourbon Street. Like I'd been in New Orleans multiple times before this and never drank, right? And I was like, I'm going to go to Bourbon Street. And oh my God, the next day when I had to fly home, that was literally all I needed. That experience in itself, I was like, what? I am all set with ever doing that again. But like I needed that experience. I needed that to show me a couple things. Like A, I don't want to drink like that. And B, that I had done so much work on myself that I was able to walk away because I understood that I didn't want to have that in my life anymore.
Right.
And there was nothing that I was like, that was so impactful or so big in my life that like I wanted to numb because I had already created this like habit of facing things
Right.
in a way that I never did before, and I had learned a lot. Like they used to say in AA, like, if you go out and have a relapse, like you do start over, but everything that you learned before is still there. And like, that's how I felt when I had that experience. I was like, yeah, like I learned a lot of things in the years that I had gone through all of this personal development. And I learned enough that like, I don't want to be hung over again. It's awful. And the older you get, oh God.
Yeah,
I
it's
can't-
horrible.
It's horrible.
Horrible. Sometimes I drink like one glass of red wine at dinner, and like the next morning I have like a little headache. And
Yeah,
I'm
you're
like,
like,
oh, why did I do
yeah.
one glass? Like I don't like. That's the other thing is people are like, ooh, because like I did have that time too, and I was like really unhappy in my marriage when I did it too. So there was like more of that. But even in that, like I would have a couple and like I don't like to be out of control. I'm like still to this day, like I've got a lot to do. I've got a lot to manage.
know.
I've got children. I've got a business. I've got all these things that I need to manage. Like this, like these accusations that are being made of me right now that like I'm some drug addict and an alcoholic. I'm like, wow. Thank you so much because you think I'm so incredible because you think that I am doing all these things that I am doing. And I'm some crazy alcoholic stoner pothead that's like, you know, smoking weed in front of my children and like, you know, just like fucking my kids up. And now my 13-year-old's going to be a drug addict because I'm some crazy alcoholic addict.
Well, and I think that a lot of that comes from just, you know, people
Fear.
Well, fear and you know, programming and you know, people just not understanding a lot of things and also their own personal opinions of, you know,
If you drink, you die. I have been, you know, not sober for over 4 years. Like, and I have added alcohol and psychedelics and, you know, medical marijuana, and nothing has happened except my life has grown exponentially. I am highly successful.
and with that, you know, you have done
Yeah.
an immense amount of work to get to that place because like I think it is also like the duality of it all, right? I think it's super important to, you know, to not kind of be like you like you know, if you drink you die, like some people do.
Yes.
Some people really do.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, they haven't reached a level of acceptance of, you know, the pain of life or whatever it is, or their trauma, you know, haven't been able to process it and stuff like that. And I don't know why that is. And I don't know why some, you know, get through it and some don't. I don't have the answers to those questions, but I know that it is a thing. So I always try to be like, you know, really conscious of that part because like I would never want to show what I'm doing.
Right.
And because no one really knows what I've done to get to where I am right now, and they'll never be able to. I will never be able to fully encompass the journey of a decade to another person to be like, if you take all these steps, like this will happen for you, and also like their life experience is completely different than mine. They have to go through whatever their path is and whatever their journey is. And like the goal for me was not to be able to drink alcohol again. It was like literally not even close. And I rarely do. You know what I mean? So, but
that's the thing that we talked about in the beginning. It's that everybody's unique experience. Every single human being, there is no one size fits all.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the thing with AA and why some people it works amazing for, right? And like that's it, and their life propels and they're so happy and they're happy going to church basements and going to meetings and like that's it for them. And that's amazing. But then there's people like us that do that and it's like not enough. And so it's like and I think that one of the main reasons that I do these podcasts and just share these is that there's other ways and it's not just a one way or a one size fits all. And my experience is completely unique due to all the experiences and all the traumas that I had that led me to all the different levels of, because even when I was in AA, I was doing breath work, I got yoga certifications, I did trauma, like the amount of trainings and the hours and trainings and ethical, like just all these things, because I have my CRSW through my treatment work, like all the stuff I did to work in rehabs, like it all was inner work because when you're doing that work, you're learning it and you have to embody it to teach it.
for sure. And it shows you a lot about you, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think that like that is a really important part of healing in general, like not just take drugs and alcohol out of it. You know what I mean? Just like the healing in general of trauma, because like addiction doesn't always show up like drugs and alcohol. Like it can show up in many, many different ways. And it can even show up in ways that are like considered positive by society standards. You know what I mean? Like if someone is, you know, going to the gym excessively or even personal development work. I mean, I think that like, if I'm being honest with myself, like I got addicted to personal development work for a very, very long time. And that's because what it is like, I think, you know, I was kind of contemplating like, what is addiction? Like, because it's something that's so elusive and so misunderstood, and there's so little information about what it actually is and how it can affect people and what it looks like even, right? So I was kind of like sitting with that, and I had like this like thought come to me that it was like, we as humans are consistently trying to be comfortable, right? Like we're always looking for safety and comfort, always, 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 whether that be in our job, whether that be in the way that we are, the place that we live, relationships, you know, whatever. Like we have this inherent need to feel safe and comfortable and stay alive, like obviously. Okay. So with humans though, or with life in general, we'll say, being uncomfortable, or that uncomfortable place is where we grow, right? And safety and comfort is not real. Like it's really not, because anything can change in a minute. Like in an instant, your entire life could change. I could drive out of here and get sideswiped and die. Like anything can happen in any moment. So like that illusion of comfort, of safety or whatever it is, I feel like is just living in us a lot. And until you can realize like that's not really real, you're going to find ways to be comfortable and be safe and stay in that comfort zone. And I think that might be tied to it in some way, because if I really think about it, like all the times that I ever did something excessively, I was just looking for safety. I was just looking for like comfortability, that calmness. Like that's what I was looking for, was to not feel afraid of the unknown all the time. And it wasn't until like we were talking about duality before, right? Like everything in this world is duality. Like all the, you know, love and light and all that stuff, like that's a part of it, but so isn't the shadow. Like you have to be able to encompass both and understand both and accept both, and not look at one as positive and the other as negative, because like shadow work is a humongous part of what I do. And it's a huge part of my life. And I used to think for many, many years that doing shadow work was working on the things inside of myself that were gross or ugly or bad or whatever. And that's like really what I thought it was. And then I finally realized that it's actually just uncovering what's hidden. What's in the shadows is just hidden. And it's the parts of me that I was either consciously hiding or that were unconsciously hid through, you know, whatever my human experience. And through that process of being able to do that and like really accepting both parts of me, in all the parts of me. And it's a journey still. Like I always want to like put an emphasis on that this will continue to happen. I will continue to learn more. I will continue up that spiral of healing and meet the same things over and over again from a different perspective in a different way, because like you don't just get something and it, you know, you're done and you move on.
There's
Maybe
no-
some things, but
There's no arrival point.
exactly.
You never arrive.
Exactly.
Never.
And then like with accepting that there's duality and that there's light and dark to all things, and that each thing has an equal and just as important purpose, that kind of brings a level of understanding and peace in itself, because it's like, oh, like if I didn't have this pain, I would never understand the pleasure. If I didn't have this struggle, I would never understand the ease. Like, how can I understand all these positive things that I have or want in my life without really experiencing the contrast? And to the depth that I've been able to experience the contrast of things, brings about the depth that I'm able to experience the opposite, whether that be, you know, positive or negative. You know, it's just all about perception, whatever. And yeah, it's just like cool. And like with that comfort zone of like, you know, humans feeling like they need to know what's going to happen. And I still have that. Like,
Yeah.
big time.
We seek comfort.
Yes.
It's okay. That it's okay to seek that.
Yeah.
But also there to be able to enjoy your comfort, you have to be uncomfortable.
Yes.
Because you have to grow. You can't just tread water. You're never just treading water. I think that that's where people are like, oh, I'm just like, like, no, you're either kind of like going like backwards, or you're like have to make conscious choices to go forward. And I say it with breath work, and what we're doing right now is that nobody has emotional maturity. Nobody knows, not nobody. There's groups of us now, we're learning, right? And it's not our fault. It's not our fault. Like, oh, you don't. It's like our parents didn't teach us because they weren't taught. And it's just like this whole like
A
ripple
cycle,
effect. Yeah, it's a cycle. And now we can make a choice to stay there, or we can, choose to be uncomfortable in our emotions, because that's where addiction is, right? You just like, I don't want to feel this. And I still do it. We do it with like Netflix, right? You sit and binge watch 8 hours of Netflix, or, go to the gym, or food. Food is like, it doesn't have to be alcohol and drugs. It could be attention, right? Like men, likes, social media, things like that.
Sure.
But the thing is what happens when we're not in our emotions, when we're trying to escape our emotions constantly, is that when we get times where we're experiencing a great day, right? You're just like having a great day, and then all of a sudden you're doing the dishes, you're having a great day, and this like I call it the unworthy monster. The unworthy monster like comes in and it's like, you fucking suck. Remember, like you did this, or you feel sad, right? All of a sudden you start to feel sad, or you feel shame, or you feel something, and it instantly you attach a story to it.
Yep.
You're instantly like, ooh, I feel sad right now. I must feel sad because I did A, B, and C. And then you go like down this crazy spiral of all, like you attach a feeling to a past experience. But it's not that.
Yeah.
It's just because we're human. And like we're allowed to feel sad, and shame and guilt is a part of who we are. But instead of feeling it, we stuff it back down. We say, I'm having a great day. I'm not dealing with that right now. But what's happening in your body is because you feel good, your body's like, can you please just like take some of this sadness like out of your body and like just process it for me, please? Because I'm dying inside. I'm dying in here because you're just constantly like shifting and moving and not actually like sitting in your shit and feeling it. And so when we do these, the plant medicines, and when we go on these journeys and we do things like breath work, and we honor the duality, we really sit in the sadness, we really sit in the pain.
And I think that one of the biggest things that we do with that too is we walk into the unknown, and I think a lot of like the comfort that we're seeking is the knowing, right? Like I need to know what's happening next. I need to know what this is going to be, what this job's going to look like, what this money's going to look like, what this relationship's going to look like, what my house is going to look like, whatever. And we end up putting ourselves in this box of, constantly seeking comfort. And I think that when we have an awareness of like, okay, these behaviors that I'm doing and this, thing that I'm moving towards, am I doing this because I'm trying to make myself feel comfortable? And I've become really, really aware of like that inside of me, like that discernment between, is this me, doing the right thing, or is this me just being scared and, walking towards? And I think that when people kind of reach a level of like, I'm done with whatever this is that I'm doing, it's not working anymore, et cetera, they have that opening of that possibility of stepping into the unknown. And honestly, the most favorite thing that I ever learned from Landmark was when they did that pie chart. Do you remember?
Yeah. The what you don't know,
Yeah. Like the little slice of like, this is what I know, right? Like I know that I know how to pick up a camera and take a photo. I know that I know how to drive a car. I know that I know how to, cook food. And then like the slice of things I know that I don't know, right? Like I know that I don't know how to do brain surgery. I know that I don't know how to fly a plane, things like that. And then the whole rest of it is things that I don't know, right? And like that is where the possibility of life lies, because when you walk into, to me, like walking into the unknown was like the most terrifying thing ever. Okay. I'm a person that like safety is pretty important to me. You know, I have abandonment issues. I have like all of this trauma from like, a challenging relationship that I had with my father of not feeling safe when I was a kid and things like that. So I took all of that into adulthood with me, and I lived my life according to like trying to find that safety in another person, in an experience, and whatever. Like, and one of the things that they always said in AA is like, no matter where I go, I'm taking myself with me, right? And like, that's what I did over and over and over again. But like trying to like turn away from the truth. But I also, I don't think I really understood the truth at that time, that everything that I wanted was to step towards what I was trying to avoid, which is so interesting and such a paradox of life, I think is so funny. But like now, I work with a super amazing coach, and I've been working with him for, months now, has helped me change my perspective on fear, like a lot. Because like that unknown place, like I am a person who, I'm pretty ballsy just in general. Like I take a lot of risks in life,
Same.
Yeah. So, and yeah, that's why we are sitting here together.
Oh yeah, last night it was so funny. I was like, "Yeah, April." She's like, "Oh, when's it getting posted?" I'm like, "Oh, it's live." She's like, "You're ballsy." I'm like,
Yeah.
"I wouldn't really have it any other way." Like I'm just unfiltered.
I'm like, wait, what? Okay, like
It's live.
Yeah, and I had like all these thoughts. I'm like, oh my god, what if I say something that's like, like, oh shit, I have to be careful. But like, it's the way it is, though. You know what I mean? Like, because my main goal in life right now is to not only discover, but to embody my authentic self. Okay. So I've been trying to learn who April is my entire life, and I'm still discovering. But at this point, at 41 years of age, like I feel more connected to who I am as a person than I ever have before. And what's funny is I always thought when I got to know who I was that I was going to hate her, that I was going to be disgusted by her, that if I ever let myself like get as deep inside as I knew that I could go, that I would be so disappointed with what I would find. So I would avoid it because I was like, I don't even want to know. I don't even want to know how bad it gets in there, how dark it is or whatever. And then I used that fear as like a point on the map of where I need to move forward to. And I stepped in and I was like, regardless of whatever I find, I'm going to do it. And I walked through with like these medicine journeys. And for anybody who's like done them, some specific medicines in general, like ayahuasca, that takes an immense amount of courage to step to. That is not a challenging experience, as you know. And I was brave. I was brave and stepped to it. And then when I did that and I went through the experiences that I've had with that medicine in particular, like there's obviously other medicines that I've done that have been incredibly impactful in other ways. But this one in particular, for some reason, goes the deepest inside of me and digs it all up and shows me all the ways that I'm thinking about myself, shows me all the patterns that I have in my mind of thoughts of, how I perceive things. And I have, spent experiences of just like beating the shit out of myself over and over and over and over again in those journeys. And then I would come to this place of like, April, you just like took a humongous risk and walked into a place that you had no idea what was going to happen. You had no idea what you were going to see. You know how challenging it can be and what the experiences can bring. And you did it anyway. Like, you're brave as fuck, And when I started to realize like that, yeah, I'm a human. I've made mistakes. Like my life is not perfect. And I still do shit that's like, why are you doing that? You know what I mean? And I get myself wrapped up in things that just aren't serving me in some certain ways. And I'm unbelievably brave. And I have an amazing heart. And all I want to do truly is help people to become free of themselves. Okay. Because it's not even like free of the programming. It's not even free of all that stuff. Like that's a part of it, sure. But you have to become free of yourself first. So like I devote a humongous chunk of my life in doing that. And with like medicine work and with photography, like I thought that they were two separate things. It wasn't until my coach, who's just amazing, Nick Devlin, by the way, like I have to say his name because he's just like unbelievable. And he's so amazing at what he does. And I'm so grateful that that I work with him. He asked me during one of our sessions one day, like, what is the similarities between medicine work and photography? And I had to sit with that because I thought they were two separate things. I thought that if I wanted to move more into like the holistic healing space, that I had to give up photography completely. And, I was really contending with that for like a long time, for like a few years. And that was affecting my business. That was affecting how I, shot as a photographer, how I performed as a photographer, like everything. And the way I was with my clients, because I was kind of preparing myself to let that go, to move into the next space of my life. And when he asked me that question, I really started to think about it. And I thought about the experiences that I have with my clients when they're in my studio. Okay. And the experiences I have with my clients when I'm at their wedding, and I'm a part of the most important day of their lives. Okay. One of. And the relationships that we've been able to build by me just being authentically me, and the space that I'm able to create for them to be comfortable, with boudoir especially. Like that one in particular is a really, really intimate, very, very vulnerable experience to be able to go in front of a person and show parts of your body, and feel beautiful and try to express yourself in a way. Because a lot of women who come to me have had sexual repression. They've had sexual abuse. They've had tons of trauma. They've had children and their bodies have changed. They went through a divorce and, felt like they were just completely and totally unworthy of love. Like I meet so many women who come to me in that state of mind, and I create this space for them to take a breath, right? For them to be pampered. And, I work with Jessalyn. She's the makeup artist that I use, and she's unbelievable with my clients, and she makes them feel so incredibly beautiful. And I want it to be a whole process for them of like honor, like of honoring them and honoring their experience. Cause it's not just about these pretty photos. Like when you come in for a boudoir, it's like we share each other's lives. We talk about the reasons why you're there. And I share parts of myself with them too, of like my experiences. And it becomes this process of, almost undoing and rediscovering. So I like thought about all that, and I thought about how they feel when they leave compared to when they walk in, and what they're coming in with and then what they're leaving with. And, it is this sense of empowerment in a way that they hadn't experienced before. And some people might think it's like shallow or surface level because it's just a body, but like this is your vessel, right? Like this experience of being in this body and honoring it and loving it and showing it in the ways that you want and expressing yourself in whatever way, like that's a part of it. And that's a huge part of it. Okay. Cause like if you kind of put this aside, then what else is there? Like you're just a soul floating around, right?
Right. I think that's where people get a little lost too, is like thinking that their, passion and purpose needs to be like, I need to be
One specific thing.
I need to be a medicine woman. I need to be a sound healer. I need to be a yoga. Like there's this like these, like this
You
fit in
can
a box.
heal literally through, and you can heal by being a cashier at a grocery store.
Exactly.
Like you can offer healing to the world in any way, shape, or form. And I also thought that. Like I got stuck in that box of what it needed to look like for me to be able to offer, all of this understanding and love and space that I have inside of me for humanity to help them kind of get to this place of feeling more empowered to be who they are authentically. Like I insist upon it because when people are in my life and they are, friends around me or whatever, or any of my clients, like I insist that you feel comfortable enough to be who you are, no matter what, fully and completely. Because not only does that help you feel better about you to be able to discover who you are, it helps me. It helps me feel safe enough to be able to express myself fully too. And like, what a gift. What a gift to be able to, like, just completely and totally be and embody who you are. And accept that that can change
Yes.
all the time.
It's forever changing.
Mm-hmm.
I was at this retreat. I played sound yesterday with this woman, Jen Hudsick. She did the Firewalk training. She's incredible. But the name of the retreat was Path and Purpose, right? And we're always trying to, like, what's our purpose? What's our purpose? What's our purpose? And, like, your purpose and destiny can embody every day, right? And it can be simply as you, like, opening the door for somebody and saying hi, or, like, complimenting somebody's shoes.
Seriously.
Like, that could be your path and purpose. It's just be a smiling face in this world. And that is one of the, think about it. Think about when you're, like, at the grocery store and somebody says hi.
I literally
and,
just
like,
paid for like half of someone's groceries yesterday, or a few things, because they didn't have enough money and they were going to take it off. And I was like, can I take care of that for you?
yeah.
And, you know, she was like, oh my God, I could see the shame, you know, or whatever of it. And I'm like, please don't. I'm like, listen, I've been where you are.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, there's no judgment, girl. Like,
That's our path and purpose and destiny, is to just be kind
yeah.
to each other, because everybody's going through shit right now.
Yep.
It's horrible out there.
Yeah. It's challenging. It really is.
And we have no control.
Mm-hmm.
We actually, like, control is like another one of those delusions that you actually think you have control, because you don't have control, right? I say it all the time, like, oh, I'm a control freak. Like, I need to, like, things
Yes,
need to, like,
yes.
be somewhere. But that's an illusion, because I actually don't have control. The only thing I have control over is my inner condition, how I choose to perceive the world, how I choose to react to the world, and what I choose to focus on.
Yeah.
Right? Like, right now, am I going to, like, you know, like, I call you, like, am I going to, like, you know, constantly focus on this, like, dark part of my life that is, like, happening? Or am I going to choose to focus on, I'm in the most magical, expansive, like, time of my life. Like, like, I can't even comprehend sometimes how I am where I am right now through everything that I've gone through the past 2 years. Like, I have to, like, sit and be like, this is really I'm like sitting in the new studio. I'm like sitting in the new studio, like, you know, everyone's like helping me. They're like, everything is like happening. I'm gonna have this huge new space, and, like, I'm like,
What?
I'm like, this is, like, it's real. Like, it's real, you know? Like, even, like, the ceremonies that we're doing, like the cacao and hape ceremonies that we're doing, like, witnessing that stuff.
I know. It's really powerful. It's really powerful. I know. I totally understand what you're saying about that. And I also felt like if things were good for me and, like, they weren't for the people around me, that I needed to, like, tone it down a little bit. And because I didn't want to make anybody feel bad. Like, that's really important to me. And I've always been, like, super conscious of, like, other people's feelings around me. Like, I'm a Libra, and, you know, harmony and balance is, like, super important. So I would oftentimes, like, not speak my mind in certain ways, or not share, like, you know, wins. And I think that it's kind of like a common thing for people to kind of, like, go into the
Play small.
Well, play small, and also like that misery loves company thing, you know, like that if someone's going through a challenging time, you can't talk about the good things that are going for you. And I think that that's actually not helpful. Like, I think that if, you know, you're vibing here at this moment and someone's vibing here, like, don't go vibing here, go stay here. So maybe they can come vibe to you. And then when you start vibing here, because it's always a teeter totter, like, it's never like I've made it, like that destination does not exist. Right. Like, I could lose everything tomorrow. Who knows? Like,
Right.
And then when I'm vibing here, like, I hope the people around me are vibing here, because I want to be able to vibe up. And I think that really embodying, like, what you've accomplished is amazing. And it sucks that some people take it as arrogance, and it sucks that, you know, or bragging or whatever, because it's like you don't understand what I had to do to get this.
Right.
You don't understand, like, with my photography business, it's been open for 10 years next year. I can't even fucking believe that.
So incredible.
And this is by far the best year I've ever had, ever. And I'm still slammed. And, you know, I had, like, I feel bad because, like, my clients, I have so many clients right now, and my father passed away in October, this, you know, last month, and it threw me for a loop through all of it, and being able to kind of like manage stuff. It showed me like all the different ways that I can get help now, from like I hired a new assistant and she's amazing. And, being able to kind of like offload some of this thing that I have been carrying forever. But this business was built on like the blood, sweat, and tears and devotion of me for a decade, and being a photographer, especially, for my photographers out there, you understand that it's not just a photo shoot. It is everything leading up to it, all the client calls and relations, assisting with, all of their wardrobe choices and locations. And then, you have all of your paperwork that you need to create and send over. And then you do the session and then you edit it. And it's like this continuous relationship. I probably work right now, like maybe 80 hours a week or more. Like it's bananas.
I say it all the time. I'm like, my boss sucks.
I know. Like my boss gives me no breaks.
My boss gives me no days off. Like literally, I'm like, what the heck? Can you just like give me a break here?
Yeah.
My boss,
Yeah.
she sucks.
Yeah.
But it's like when you're passionate about something, and then it's like
Yeah.
for me, it's like somebody reaches out for a private session, and like they can only do a Sunday. Like I get it, right? People work all day long. Like of course I'm gonna say yes because I love doing it.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, look, I have to go to work. It's just like, oh, sometimes I wish I just could give myself a break.
Well, so you've been in business for what, 5 years now? Something like that? 4 years?
Yeah, it'll be 5 years in February.
Okay. And
2020. I opened in 2020.
Oh, I
February
remember.
of 2020.
I actually remember that. And
Yeah.
I remember thinking like, oh my God, she's opening during COVID. And I was like kind of worried for you a little bit because I was like, oh, this is unfortunate. And I remember you were like,
Super pregnant.
pregnant. Yep. And had
Crazy.
had Zoe during that time and everything. And it was so cool. And I thought also my business was going to end too. I was like, holy shit, what am I going to do? And it only grew from there. And it was like really, really amazing. But yeah. And also like a thing that I started to learn through this whole process and realized how important it is boundaries. Boundaries are like something I really struggled with because I wanted to be everything to everyone. Right. And, because of that, I was kind of putting myself, because I'm just bringing this up because like what you said about saying yes on a Sunday, like I would say yes all the time to everything, and then it would come to the time, and then I would realize that it was impossible for me to accomplish or be there or complete or whatever because I said yes to too many things. And like not only can I physically not do it because there's not enough hours in the day, but mentally I can't do it because I'm, now reached a level of burnout. And I really had to understand that. And like my capacity for what I can accomplish is really high. Like I definitely have an immense amount of energy and I just go and go and go. I can accomplish a lot of things and I know that about me, but I also am starting to learn my limits and, being able to set those boundaries, especially in the beginning, is like challenging, in your personal life, for whatever reasons, it's hard. And in your business life too, because like no one, I don't get paid time off. I don't get like holidays. I don't get, like my health insurance I have to pay for. Like there's no benefits to being an entrepreneur or a business owner. There are in the fact that like I, choose what my income is basically based on how hard I want to work or how much I want to put in. I have a lot more freedom because I get to choose when I work. But if I am saying yes to every single thing, then I don't get a choice anymore, because I have to accomplish all this stuff. So I'm kind of like in that place where, and my father passing away really it helped with that because not only was it like, and when I say boundaries, I'm not saying like, like putting a wall up in front of somebody and it's like, it's more like, hey, like this is what I'm capable of. And, this is what I can do for you or whatever. And when bringing it to my business, when my father passed away and just letting people know like, hey, this is like where I'm at and this is what's going on. And I am like completely buried. And that's quite a...
Remember That's our 10 minutes.
Yeah. How long does I know? And I'm like, oh my God, we could totally keep going.
I told you we could talk forever.
Yeah. So yeah, but like just being honest with people about like where I'm at and like what I'm able to accomplish is like, I'm like, this is what I'm going through. And this is what, the time that I have right now. Cause like, not only am I a business owner and like, I'm a mother and I live alone and I'm a single mom and I take care of a house by myself. And you know what I mean? Like I do a lot. There's so much more to life than just like, I take pictures. And
Well, that's the freedom of it, of being, for me, because the boundary I do have is, because I only have my kids half the time, I really do my best when I have my kids. On the days I have my kids, there's no private sessions.
Yep.
There's no work unless they're at school. And I've really built like the weekends that like I have my kids, unless it's like a full moon, the kids will know like if it's a full moon, like mom's got to work.
yeah.
Yeah, that's my biggest, benefit in being, an entrepreneur as a mom.
Yeah.
Is that like but that means that I don't get a day off because I'm, working 12-hour days when I'm not with my kids, and when I'm with my kids, I'm a mom.
Yeah.
And that's my hardest, most important job. Because they're little.
Yep, exactly. I know. And it's hard to, like, because right now with, the season that I just had and I'm continuing to have, which I'm so grateful. But I really haven't been able to be present with my kids lately because I can't take days off right now because of the workload. So I have to like really just power through and push through and try to, because I've put myself in the situation. And also it made me realize a lot about my business, because I realized that my life can't happen. Okay. Like I did not have my business set up in such a way that my life could happen and that I would be able to take time or space and not have everything kind of just like pile on top of me into this mountain that I need to now try to climb up or climb through. So that experience really ignited a lot in me. Like I hired an assistant. Yeah. And, I have all these different like systems that I'm getting put into place so that I can hand this to somebody if my life happens. Right. Like, having a parent die is obviously a huge experience, regardless of what the relationship with your parent is.
Right.
It's a humongous experience. And I think that you always think you kind of know what something's going to feel like until it happens. And then you're like, this one really was like the opposite or so different anyways than I thought it was going to be like, and I have not been able to fully process this yet. And it's been, a month and a half. And as in like right now, like the grief still
there
rises, and I really do my best to give it space, because I know that if I try to stuff it down, like it's only going to cause issues inside of me. Like we were talking about with like all the somatics and stuff, and like how your body imprints trauma. And if your emotions are not fully expressed or released, it can really cause some trouble. So I still have that, there. And,
well, grief is forever.
I know.
And I like we're going to have a whole nother podcast.
I know.
We're going to have to wrap it up. But
we'll do it again.
I do a breathwork class about grief. And grief is really just love that has no place to go.
Mm-hmm. My favorite book on grief is The Smell of Rain on Dust. Have you read it?
Mm-mm.
So it was recommended to me by my friend Nick, and I highly recommend the audiobook because he reads it. And he is like an indigenous shaman, and the book is about how we don't know how to grieve properly in the West. Okay. And in like the new age and culture. And it gives a ton of practices about how to do it, and just the story of like what grief actually is and what it looks like and how it needs to fully be expressed. And it's basically that. It's like it's the praise of how important that person, place, experience, memory,
part
whatever,
of yourself.
Exactly. How important it is to you. And like he describes in the book, that if we grieved in the way that like the human body is meant to grieve, people would be like calling the cops or the ambulance, because it's like this deep, like allowing fully, like screaming and crying and, being in bed for however many days, like whatever, allowing whatever it is to come up of like all of that love that you are, and that loss and that honor of, this experienced person, placing whatever comes up. And it helps so much with me in that book. And whenever I have anybody in my life that is going through like a deep, grieving process, especially if they lost somebody, I will send them that book. And I'm like, just read this book. But I do highly recommend the audiobook. I'm not like an audiobook person. I'm like a touch-a-book person. But that audiobook for some reason is like, it's so, 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 so good.
Okay, we're going to end.
Okay.
One thing, we're going to have another one, obviously. But one thing that you could tell the world, best piece of advice, something right now that's like really resonating with you that you want to share.
You're meant to be here to enjoy it and experience it all. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Accomplishment is like, just enjoy it. Enjoy the ride. The journey is actually what it is, not the destination.
Yes. Thank you so much.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you, April. Thank you for listening. I did start Monday nights Zoom breathwork at 7. You go on the website, 7 p.m. Tomorrow's breathwork is going to be all about abundance. So tune in. It's a really incredible meditation, breathwork meditation. So much expansion. The studio is having a new location. Thank you. Shout out to Sammy and 603 Live podcast. If you're looking to get a message out to the world, he makes it incredibly easy, and I'm super grateful. So reach out, and hope you guys have a beautiful week, and I'll see you soon. Bye.